So from this point, we've covered how to see the visualization options you have and all the various options you have for saving and manipulating your visualizations. In a moment, I'll show you what all of this means in the various cards here. These are marks cards, for instance, and how this is effectively where you would go to change colors, the size of various visualizations, adding text, and so on and so forth. But I'll show you that once we create a visualization. So at this point, let's go ahead and get started. We'll make a simple visualization as a starting point, and then we'll make some minor edits to it. Let's say, for instance, that you're interested in, since this is sample tree data that was collected by volunteers in New York City back in about 2015. It's been almost 10 years ago now. And this is a sampling of that particular data that was collected. But let's say you're interested in the total number of trees broken down by borough in New York City. So the 5 boroughs in the city. We could do that pretty easily. To begin with, obviously, we know since we're interested in the boroughs, that's going to give us a clue that we probably want to have the boroughs included in the visualization. At this point, remember that click, drag, and drop interface. We can click, drag, and drop here within the visualization pane if you choose. If you do that, it's going to automatically populate in either row or column, or use that undo button. You could also move it to whichever row or column, your preference. And if we change that, it will obviously adjust the orientation. We'll have it in the rows for now. And then lastly, undo again, you could just double click, same sort of thing. Those are all the 3 options you have for getting what I'm going to refer to these as pills, these individual fields, for getting them from the data view over here to the actual visualization pane. So at this point, we've got the boroughs there, but this looks very much like, just a spreadsheet form, right? So we're literally in the table, which looks no different than an Excel spreadsheet. The only difference is we don't have any actual numbers. So at this point, we need some sort of numerical value. And so for instance, we may know that intuitively, but if not, we can also click on, let's say, the bar chart, or hover over the horizontal bar chart option here and notice that we need at least one or more measure to generate a bar chart. So what that means is we need to go down here and pull one of these fields or one of these pills into the visualization pane to get started. At this point, I'll note that you'll see several of these at the very bottom. These final 4 have they were not in the original data. They've been auto-generated by Tableau, and that includes longitude and latitude information because we have those geo variables up here, these fields. But also this is a total count of all of the trees in our data. And you notice it says smaller tree census. It's kind of hard to see. Let me move this over. Count. So that's a total count. That's going to be the big clue. And your data will likely have something similar if you have your own data. That basically, if you look for that count in parentheses, that's going to be the same thing. It's effectively quantified the number of trees in this particular data. So if we drag that up to the columns heading, then we'll see the formation of our very first visualization, in this case in a bar chart. Now you may be interested orientation-wise to adjust this. Like I mentioned, you can arrange by ascending, descending order, but you can also flip the X and Y axis. So just with the click of a button, this might be your preference. These are relatively short enough words that it works in this particular orientation, but you may have a preference for this visualization style as well. Like I said, you can arrange ascending, descending. So if you wanted to see them in descending order, you could do that by hovering over, clicking this particular icon. So we've got the visualizations, again, in a basic format here with bar charts. At this point, we can add a couple of other things just as an example. But before I do that, notice if I hover over any of these, this is sort of the interactive component that I mentioned earlier, right? So hovering over it reveals 2 things. It's confirmation of the actual borough itself, which we already have that information here, but it's still there within what's called the details marks card. So we have Queens as the borough, and then we have the total number of trees that were counted, again, from the sample data in the Queens itself. So 987 trees total were counted in Queens. At this point, though, let's suppose, for instance, that you were not going to be publishing this on a website. So in other words, it wouldn't be interactive. Instead, you wanted to incorporate this into a research paper. You probably want to have some sort of label on this in addition to we already have the boroughs themselves, so maybe the total count. Maybe you want that to be visible for each of these bars. So if we want to do that, we're going to go down here once again to that small tree census count. And we're not going to reuse the one we already have up here in the visualization, but we're going to just drag another one, a fresh one, so to speak, to the label marks card. And when you hover over it, you'll see it change just ever so slightly to gray. And that's going to now add those labels to your visualization. Let's say also that you want to change the color. So you could do that a couple ways. If you don't like the blue and you want maybe all of your visualization or all your bar charts, sorry, let's say to be orange, you could do that. If you wanted them to have a border to help them a little bit, to stand out a little bit more, to create a little bit more contrast, you could do that. And a couple of other options there as well. Also, though, if you wanted to add if you wanted each of these bar charts to have a unique color, you could also do that. So that's easy enough to do. Once again, we'll come up to the borough this time. Again, we're not pulling the one that we already have in the visualization. We're going to get a fresh one, and we're going to drag it over to the color marks card. And again, you'll see it just ever so faintly change to gray. And now that's going to change each of the two. We retained the borders, but we now have a new unique color for each of the boroughs. So it helps to kind of distinguish your visualization. So that's about it with the initial bar chart. I'll show you kind of quickly how to create a different orientation of a bar chart very quickly. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go over to the new worksheet icon. I'm going to click new worksheet. You'll probably see sheet 2. I'm in sheet 7 again because I already had some visualizations open. And at this point, again, say that we have the visualization now showing the number of trees per borough, but let's say now we wanted to actually focus or the emphasis on the number of each tree, so species type, so the total number of each type of tree counted in the city of New York. And to do that, once again, we're going to go over to our data source itself and select one of these column headings. We won't be the boroughs this time, but instead we're going to be looking for tree name is the one that we're looking for specifically. And so we'll do that, and then we're just going to follow the same steps as before. Again, we could have double-clicked it, drug it here. I'm going to move it down to the row just for my own preference so we can see all those. And then we're just going to select, again, that small tree census data or small tree census count. And that's going to do the same thing, right? So now it's going to populate our visualization using a bar chart. And I will reorient it. A little bit easier to read, at least for now. And there are a couple of things you'll notice. One, notice that we have this null value here. If we wanted to remove that null value, you just simply click on the source itself. So in this case, this is coming from the tree name common field. So we know that we need to go to that field to make the change. So hover over it, and you'll see the drop-down arrow. Click the filter option, uncheck null. Okay, and that's going to remove the null value out. So at this point, again, we can arrange in descending, ascending order. We'll do descending order. And so now we see the trees counted from most to least. And once more, we can add color to our visualization, either by changing the color of every entry uniformly or providing them with individual and unique colors, whatever your preference may be. And so once again, as we hover over, we can see the various color or various information from the detail marks cards. In this case, the Norway maple, there were a total of 369 counted throughout the city, or in other words, all 5 boroughs. And then likewise, similarly, you can add in the label itself by going to the tree label. So we have that information now as well. And I didn't mention it earlier, but if you did want to make the bars skinnier, for instance, you would click that size label. You can make them a little bit bigger as well. And if for some reason you wanted to make the size based on the number of trees, you could do that as well. And we'll do that in a moment, but just keep in mind that you have the options really for all of these to change either uniformly across the board the color or the size, or you can click and drag various points of data here to visualize it. Quickly, I'll say also with the detail marks card, if you wanted to add additional information here, you could do that. So anything that when I hover over a visualization, you see the tree name, common Norway maple, and the count of smaller tree census. All that information is there automatically. But if I wanted to add, let's say maybe the health for each of these, I could drag that into the detail marks card. That's going to add a little bit of complication to the visualization, but just as a case of the way that works. So we can now see that 195 of those trees, Norway maple trees, are in good health or were marked as good health. 120 were in fair health, and 54 of them were in poor health. But whatever your variable is, it would work the same way. I'm going to undo that, and we'll leave it more or less the same with our burrows. I'm going to go back to sheet. I'm not going to click on sheet 6, but I'm going to, well, I'm going to right click it, and that's going to bring up this option here. And I want to rename this tab to number of trees. Let's see, tree count, or sorry, trees by, let's see, burrow, and then we'll put this trees. We'll rename sheet 7 or sheet 2 in your case. Trees, oops, trees by name, or you could, whatever, species type, whatever you prefer. But that way that it's easily to distinguish and tell what we're looking at here.